Shia LaBeouf's life has spiraled out of control, and he keeps making everything worse and worse.
Say Christ is Lord! Say Christ is Lord!
He's arrested at Mardi Gras for assaulting someone in the street, bailed out the same night, back partying the next day. His ID is then found on the street. He's completely wasted, staring at you in the pub like some crazy nutcase who's washed up from the street. And we're talking about a former A-list star, a guy who's worth $20 million. But that might just be the cost of his life, because he always said he thought it was all meaningless. He felt ashamed of achievements that most people can only dream of. He was simply not compatible with any of it, and it destroyed him.
All these movies, I have big shame about these movies. They don't mean anything. And I felt like I was living a life that was meaningless. And so I drank a lot and smoked a lot of weed, very lascivious with women, and was trying to like fill a hole, just constantly chasing instincts, just like an animal, and thought I was in control of things. And I was in an industry that would applaud that. And so I would come to set and I would freak out in front of a camera, ooh, and people would clap, and then I'd go home and I'd be a crazy person. And I hurt people.
He got in young, saw how it worked, and what he saw changed him permanently. But he kept on doing it anyway. Every stunt he pulled to reclaim his identity, even lying about his dad abusing him to sell his comeback movie. He kept selling himself to the machine, culminating in his latest breakdown on the streets of New Orleans. As he spirals out of control, he gives this unhinged interview about what happened on Channel 5, crying about God and Jesus.
What would you say to Jesus if you could meet him?
I wouldn't say shit.
Really?
Nah. But I'd kiss him.
Laughing about prison and sabotaging his own court case.
Went right back to the fucking French Quarter. It was about to be the fucking Zulu parade. Who gives a fuck though? It's another experience.
Yeah.
Jail will be another adventure.
This is the only Shia everyone knows today. There's regret and repentance buried inside there somewhere, and it's clear he's paying a price most people couldn't even imagine.
I put a gun in my mouth, I was ready to kill myself.
So what actually happened? It took only a few years for Hollywood to seemingly tear him apart and turn him into one of its most tragic stories. Because this is the Shia we still remember from before. Even Stevens and Hole's a fresh-faced, relatable kid who made people feel good about life. Or Disturbia when he's sitting at home playing games, spying on his neighbors. He was all about growing up with no responsibilities other than messing about with your friends, going to school and just playing pranks on the teachers, stumbling through bad situations, getting in trouble, and yet somehow still coming out on top. This is how Shia's career took off. Hollywood needed a relatable guy who represented young people, and they nailed it.
What would your father think?
What the fuck's the matter with you?
You're in Holes. That's one of the movies you play Stanley, a young boy falsely arrested for stealing, subjected to unusual punishment.
You can see exactly what they saw in him and why this was so marketable. With more and more fame coming his way, he later admitted he knew the risks, like when he said this.
Once this success starts, it's almost surreal and you can't believe it.
The world had been handed to me on a silver platter. Right. I did not know why. It was just sort of handed to me, and I had a hard time coming to terms with that. It's like being a trust fund baby. Yeah, you're gonna f up.
But it didn't prevent him from getting completely sucked in, and that's exactly what happened. Shia's latest antics are the endpoint of a decade-long bender that probably kicked off when he released a short film called HowardCantor.com. It looked amazing when it aired at Cannes Film Festival, but turned out to be an almost shot-for-shot adaptation of a graphic novel by Daniel Close. The dialogue, structure, and narrative were all stolen. He hadn't credited Daniel at all. He hadn't even asked for permission, or even tried to hide any of this. And instead of apologizing, he doubled down, and what he did next shocked everyone. He goes on Twitter and starts apologizing, but every single apology is plagiarized too. He lifts lines from Tiger Woods, from Kanye West, from government officials, one after another, and when people catch on, he doesn't stop. He hires a skywriter to scrawl "I am sorry, Daniel Close" across the Los Angeles sky. Then he tweets some definitions of the word cloud. Cloud, vapor floating in the atmosphere. Remote servers used to share data to make less clear or transparent. Maybe it was some poetic genius about an industry that's just vapor. A cloud that appears huge, imposing, but it's mostly full of gas. Or maybe he was just high as a kite at the time he wrote it. With Shia, you just can never actually tell, as at this point he's already an enigma. Either way, the ridicule was off the chain, and the industry stopped forgiving his eccentric personality as soon as it became a genuine liability. But instead of backpedaling and apologizing to reinvent his career, Shia doubled down again. He sets up an art installation at a gallery in LA called I Am Sorry. For 6 days, he sits in a small room wearing a tuxedo and the paper bag with "I am not famous anymore" written across it, all while members of the public are let in one at a time. They chose an object from a table on their way in. There's a whip, pliers, and a Transformers toy, a bowl of printed out hate tweets about him. Then they sit opposite him and do whatever they want. He doesn't speak or move, but just takes whatever comes his way. This is a direct inversion of the Hollywood dynamic. Instead of performing for the audience performs on him. He's making himself the product and letting people consume him in the most literal, uncomfortable way possible. And it got pretty weird. One woman, he later reveals, whipped his legs for 10 minutes and then sexually assaulted him while her boyfriend waited outside the door, and he didn't even break character. Now this, like a lot of modern art, will divide people into two camps. If you're in camp 1, you think this is a pretty cool stunt, at least original. If you're camp 2, you think this is pointless, pretentious celebrity drivel. But regardless of what you think, it's definitely not normal behavior for someone who's appeared in Hollywood blockbuster movies. Someone who appeared in Transformers, Fury, Indiana Jones. Hollywood stars are not known for their self-criticism. They all stay in the same self-protected bubble, where everyone's always sucking up to them at all times. When they're not on a promo run or hitting the red carpet, they overwhelmingly spend their time chilling out in the Hollywood Hills drinking champagne, looking down at the streets below, all while they attend secret mansion and island parties. But as you can imagine, Shia wasn't in the files. He said he hadn't even bothered to follow Epstein's story at all.
All these documents are dropping.
Nah, bro, I was fucking chasing ass on Mardi Gras. What do you mean? I wasn't paying no attention to Epstein files. Nah, this shit is beyond me, bro. I don't get into this shit.
But these first stunts were only the start of a very unusual rebellion against the industry that built him. He's booted off a stage production of Orphans after clashing with Alec Baldwin, and instead of keeping this quiet, he tweets his private email exchange with the cast. Then he turns up to the premiere of Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac wearing the paper bag again, this time on the red carpet in Berlin. Then he pushes this even further. He films 36 monologues for art students at Central St. Martin's in London. One of them was a deranged motivational speech where he screams,
Just do it!
while clutching his crotch, which everyone ripped on. He released this under a Creative Commons license to make sure people could use it for whatever they wanted. And it goes even further than that. Rob Cantor, a musician from an indie band called Tally Hall, was helping his friend move a couch when he whispered Shia LaBeouf into his friend's ear and they burst out laughing. It then turned into this. It's an absurd fantasy of Shia as an actual cannibal hunting people in the woods. This went mega viral and was turned into a full theatrical production featuring the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles, the LA Children's Choir, a string quartet, interpretive dancers wearing a giant Shia LaBeouf head, and the whole thing performed completely deadpan as though it's a serious orchestral piece. Now you might think this is a massive joke at Shia's expense, but if you watch to the end, you'll see the camera pans, where it's Shia himself in a tuxedo doing the Citizen Kane clap. He was in on it. He acknowledged the meme on Twitter before that too, writing, "You beat me." Millions of people probably know Shia for that one clip instead of his actual movies. It's the same meta-comedy weirdness he acted out in his art pieces. He's pushing himself into this liminal space where he's both laughing with and at himself. But we still haven't reached his most ambitious and polarizing stunt yet, which saw him basically lose what little support he had left from at least half of America. On the day of Trump's inauguration, Shia set up a livestream camera outside a New York museum. Anyone can walk up and say he will not divide us into the lens. It's supposed to run for 4 years, but it lasts 6 days before he's arrested on camera after shoving someone who says Hitler did nothing wrong. The museum then shuts it down within 3 weeks, so he moves it to New Mexico. Shots are then fired nearby, so it's shut down again. So he goes underground. He plants a flag, just the words "He will not divide us," in an unmarked field somewhere in America. There's a camera pointing at the sky with no landmarks or clues, just a flag in clouds. But 4chan then finds this in 38 hours. They study play contrails and cross-reference flight radar data. They find a photo of Shia at a Tennessee diner on social media. Then they send a local to drive around honking his horn until it's picked up on the livestream audio. They then replace the flag with a MAGA hat. So he moves it to Liverpool, again shut down in 2 days, then France, which was also sabotaged. The project bounces between countries for 4 years, the most absurd game of capture the flag in internet history. Then he books out a cinema in New York and live streams himself watching every single one of his own films, back to back for 3 days straight. The public can just walk in and sit with him. Thousands watch online not the films, but just him. They watch Shia watch himself. They then screenshot his reactions, track which film he's on, and turn his reactions into memes. He laughs through the early stuff, cringes through the blockbusters, falls asleep during some. He looks genuinely miserable during Transformers. And you can literally watch 10 hours of this on YouTube. The memes were pretty incredible. And the fact that he looked happiest watching the smaller films nobody saw, and most broken when watching the ones that made him famous, aligns with what he's been saying, though you can't tell if this was already premeditated. Then there's the Take Me Anywhere hashtag. Shia and his art collaborators tweet out their live GPS coordinates, and accept a ride from whoever shows up first. For a month, a Hollywood star standing on the side of the road, waiting for strangers to pick him up. Truckers, students, families, he doesn't care. He has no entourage, no security, no publicist. He literally goes wherever they take him. He then released it as a documentary, and it's pretty heartwarming, honestly. This gave Shia's life a real glimmer of hope, and it makes for a stark comparison to Shia now. You have to try and acknowledge what he was trying to do in deconstructing and humiliating himself. A lot of people said it was self-indulgent and narcissistic since he was publishing all of this for everyone to see, but every stunt was an attempt to make a mark beyond being credited in a film. Almost as if he was playing a real version of the unhinged juvenile he portrayed in some of his films. None of it worked, but the desperation behind it was real. And there's no denying that Shia earned his criticisms. People defended him at the start, but his manic state exhausted his support. All the while, he was consuming more and more drugs and alcohol. He was arrested during a live performance on Broadway after sexually assaulting the lead, all while smoking repeatedly inside and being extremely intoxicated after downing multiple double whiskeys after arriving. Around then, James Franco stepped out of the Hollywood line and actually wrote an opinion piece comparing LaBeouf to Marlon Brando, arguing that both were rebelling against a system that forces actors to become their public persona. Franco frames it as LaBeouf trying to reclaim his public persona through performance art, and we all know what eventually happened to James Franco later on. But at the time, no one took this opinion piece seriously. The industry is now fully set on smothering an evidently sick person with mental health and addiction problems. And this isn't the early 2000s or 90s when no one cared. The industry had gone through tons of public breakdowns like Britney, Amanda Bynes, and Lindsay Lohan. It's just an endless list that raised serious questions about their duty of care, but no lessons were learned. Nothing about his behavior is excused, but the handling of it is not comfortable when big figures in Hollywood commit horrific systemic crimes and somehow still get standing ovations. Like Roman Polanski raping a 13-year-old, fleeing the country and still getting Hollywood praise. At the time, it was just taken for granted that he'd gone a bit mental, like when Kimmel casually introduced his appearance with this line.
You seem to have gone crazy since the last time I saw you. Is that true?
It does seem that way, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I guess I have.
This hits harder because Shia once embodied the optimism of youth, but now he started to embody that optimism being destroyed by the realities of life. All the time he'd been climbing the ranks, his home life, he said, was littered with domestic violence. His father was a drug user with PTSD from 3 tours in Vietnam who spent 3 years in prison for attempted rape in the 80s. Even at a young age, he quickly realized he wasn't so much a star, but a product being sold to make studios hundreds of millions of dollars. He starts self-medicating with weed and alcohol, and he was arrested for drunk driving after crashing his car with a Transformers co-star inside. It's the first in a string of arrests, alongside behavior that only gets more bizarre as time goes on. But the chaos didn't hurt him at first, it helped him. He even admitted that his off-screen shenanigans actually made him more appealing to Hollywood directors at the time. For the industry, it's free marketing. They make an authentic child star. He's a bit unhinged, but so what, it's Hollywood. So they leave him off of the hook. Off of the back of Transformers, Indiana Jones was next, and would be the pinnacle of his career, starring again as the unhinged rogue that he was. But this turned out to be a total nightmare. As he began testing the limits, his behavior becomes more outrageous. He confessed he didn't even love acting, he'd come to hate it and everyone linked to it. He hated this entire fake Hollywood life. As his initial plan, the drive behind his career to begin with was simply to help his family. He was just 10 years old when he saw other kids doing stand-up comedy, then found a number in a phone directory, called the agent, and talked his way into getting some gigs. This is why he seems so legit compared to all these other actors, as he's not some rich kid lifted from a showbiz family backed by expensive drama school training. So by the time Shia was old enough to understand what he traded, the transaction was already done. And none of it worked because his family was still a mess. Money wasn't fixing his problems. This entire life he dedicated himself towards wasn't doing the thing that it was supposed to. And all of his effort, he'd seen it for what it was. It wasn't art at this level, it was a money machine. He was the tool used to do just that. It didn't square with him for the simple fact that he didn't have an institutional state of mind. Compare him to someone like Harrison Ford, their universes apart, yet pretty much co-starring in one of the biggest movies of the era. Created by the key figures in the Hollywood elite like Steven Spielberg. People at the top, people like Harrison Ford, learned the game decades ago. You show up, do the work, go home, say nothing. The old school model. But the new model of Hollywood is stranger. There are a handful of people in Hollywood now where you genuinely can't tell when the on-camera version ends and the off-camera version begins. The Rock is the top of that pyramid. He posts a 4 AM workout video every day with the same grin he's had for 20 years. Is that Dwayne Johnson or is that The Rock? Or does it even matter? Shia's real and performative self bleed together in a different way. The real and the performed don't merge, they're at war. He can't fully become the product because something in him keeps rejecting it. But he can't go back to being a normal person either because he hasn't been one since he was 10. So he's stuck in between, too honest to fake it but too damaged to stop. The Rock never admitted to steroids. Shia admitted immediately he was taking them on his role for Salvable.
I was about to die. We had a cardiologist tell me you gotta stop. I was on like all kind of weird steroids, like not steroids, but it's called SARMs. You know what that is? SARMs?
No.
Yes.
He's been labelled as the millennial's Mel Gibson, and you can definitely see some parallels at this point. They both hid inside the industry and just couldn't ignore what they saw. Mel was Shia's hero and even recently said he wanted to shake some sense into him because he knew what that was like. Shia, like Mel, learned the hard way that if you gaze into the Hollywood abyss for too long, the abyss gazes back at you. So he started to see everyone who had helped him for what they really were, and you get the feeling that realization tortured his soul. He said that his idol, Steven Spielberg, wasn't a genius, he was just a businessman. So Shia turned on him too, making bitter headlines everywhere.
I remember talking shit to Spielberg. I mean, there was no director who ever directed me.
For the first time, he didn't just resent the industry, he wanted to destroy it, and he chose one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. By this point, it wasn't about his behavior anymore. It was about his innermost self. He no longer came across as friendly, as someone who had issues but also had people's best interests at heart. Instead, it was corrupting him to the core. He admitted to being an awful person at work, even bullying actors on set if they're inexperienced or unsure of themselves.
Directors who put me on, who took me from nothing and put me on, I eviscerated in public life. Even on set, when I would sense weakness in another person on the other side of a scene, I would lean in. I wouldn't try to uplift nobody.
Where he used to sell films first, now he sold newspapers. The world loves a falling star, more so if it burns brightly on its way down and creates lots of engaging content along the way.
You know, I had no love in my life, I had no purpose in my life. My whole purpose, as you know, was just craft. It was just, I'm gonna be good at this thing, and that's all that I have. The only thing I care about in life is being a good actor. And that's such a vapid, shallow existence. And 3 emotions that I toggled between, which was, I would feel anxiety, depression, and excitement.
This was the exact state Hollywood wanted him in at the time. This was the instability it rewarded, until it didn't. Once his worsening mental health, evident addiction issues, and psychosis took over, the list of people willing to work with him was dwindling.
What are we inventing a whole step for? Where did that come from? Who was the director who came in here and started to stage the scene?
You're obviously the director.
Yeah, but I'm not having a chance to.
His toxicity isn't tolerated anymore and he became unemployable. It was finally time for an intervention. So he goes to rehab. And it's at this point everything looked like it was about to change. While there, he's told to write something, anything to confront the demons. And what he writes is truly phenomenal. He delves into the trauma that created him. His brutal upbringing, his abusive and cruel father. It was a searing account of personal pain, and it's a script for his biopic Honey Boy. He got his dad to sign off on it by lying to him that Mel Gibson, their hero, would play him.
Did you tell him beforehand?
My dad's a pretty off-color character. He wasn't like too enthused about me playing him, you know? I don't know how you are with your dad or how you guys are with your dad, but my dad wasn't trying to have me play him, so I lied to him and told him that Mel Gibson would be playing him.
After leaving Rehab, the film goes into production, and he even cast someone he'd soon fall in love with, the upcoming British singer FKA Twigs. And the film is an enormous success. He'd bypassed Hollywood, and against all odds, his career was back, just like his hero Mel Gibson had shown. So, during the COVID pandemic around that time, he then showed up alongside Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston, and Morgan Freeman on a celebrity Zoom about the 80s comedy Fast Times at Richmond High. There he was shirtless in a car with neon sunglasses, probably high, and stole the show. It was clear he hadn't completely lost his mojo for acting, as Honey Boy wasn't just a film, it was penance, it was accountability, it was proof he'd finally forced the truth. Except it wasn't. FKA Twigs publicly accuses him of abusing her. She then goes on the Louis Theroux podcast and details a violent attack in public, where no one would intervene.
After the incident driving back from the desert where he was threatening to crash the car unless I said I loved him, and ended up basically strangling me in public at a gas station, and nobody did anything.
Singer Shia follows up claiming he is abusive and manipulative, and once again his reputation is shredded. Only this time he's not on the hook for destroying his own life, but that of other women, in a post-Me Too climate where cancellation for such allegations is a certainty.
This morning, we are hearing from British singer-songwriter FKA Twigs in her first TV interview since filing a civil lawsuit in December against actor and former boyfriend Shia LaBeouf.
With his newly resurrected career crucified, Shia retreats from the limelight, and it's at this time that he has a child with Mia Goth. Now, fatherhood actually seems to have a profound effect on him. Perhaps having to put someone before himself for the first time in his life is the anger he needed to center himself after 2 decades of self-destruction. But after the abuse allegations, he was still untouchable. Only one person was willing to talk to him and let him speak, and this conversation revealed who Shia LaBeouf really is. On John Berthnell's podcast, Shia admits something that reframes the entire story. The abusive father, the trauma that sculpted him, the script he wrote in Rehab as a part of his healing. He admits he exaggerated it, manipulated us all, and shaped it to win sympathy. The work he'd done in Rehab, expunging his demons by writing the script, wasn't part of a healing process at all.
I wrote this narrative, which was just fucking nonsense. My dad was so loving to me my whole life. Fractured, sure. Crooked, sure. Like, wonky for sure. But never was not loving, never was not there. He was always there. He was always there.
He wasn't doing it to grow or get better, he just made it all up. He made himself the victim because that's how he saw himself.
People who would come to me after seeing that movie asking me about how to help, and I would tell them, well, you just gotta paint with your pain. You know, and all this fucking nonsense. Honey Boy is basically like a big woe is me story about how my father is. And I wronged him.
However, here he looks after several tries to have really gotten clean and taken true accountability. He tearfully admits he nuked relationships because he felt people only wanted to be in relationships or friends with him due to his success.
It's difficult for a dude in my spot to receive love. Because you don't feel like you deserve it. And so, you wind up dipping on a lot of people, even when they're showing up for you. And then you gotta have like real conversations. I had to really put it out there to him, like, bro, I don't feel successful enough to be your friend anymore.
He said the only thing that might actually save him from himself and what he called the poetry inside of him that tore him apart was to work at a job that didn't ask that of him at all. Like working at Home Depot, where you can take some pleasure in going through the motions.
I spend so much time in Home Depot, dog.
Do you?
Yeah, that's a church for me.
Yeah.
Home Depot
Are you
is
building a lot? Are you working with your hands?
I'm in Home Depot all the time.
Okay, so you feel like
I love
you
Home
have
Depot.
The reception to this was mixed. People were enraged that Berthnell was giving a platform to a woman beater. They were horrified that Shia was just so much more narcissistic than anyone had ever known. For those who grew up with him, even idolized him, it was like disavowing a friend you've done absolutely everything for but can no longer get behind. People questioned what other things he'd lied about. If he was admitting he'd told the whole world his father was an abuser to sell a film, revive his career, and burnish his reputation. But there's also a lot of admiration that he was honest about it. It showed he really had turned over a new leaf. His commitment to sobriety for his daughter was poignant and relatable for many people. But it didn't last, with him showing everyone that this year is just another relapse. The Channel 5 interview reveals how fragile his mental state is right now, as he switches between moments of clarity and madness.
To be honest with you, big gay people are scary to me.
What do you mean?
When I'm like standing by myself and 3 gay dudes are next to me touching my leg, I get scared. I'm sorry. If that's homophobic, then I'm that.
Yeah. Does that happen a lot?
No, it just happened one time.
Recently?
Well, that's why I got arrested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you were sort of being groped and surrounded.
I'm not gonna say that because my lawyer said, oh, fuck, dude.
At another stage, he starts to talk about being Catholic and appears to be about to say he doesn't agree with gay people before catching himself and even asking for help to no one in particular.
I'm a Catholic, bro. You know what I mean? I don't fuck with the... God, be careful. Help me now. I'm a Catholic.
From the direction he's headed in, jail is about the only option he hasn't exhausted and might be his destiny if he can't turn things around. Shia's life had become so surreal, past tragedy, past comedy, past entertainment, into this uncanny valley where you're watching a real person but your brain is treating it like fiction. Hollywood didn't only break him, it built him from scratch first. It took a kid with nothing, gave him everything, and never once prepared him for what that would actually cost. Then when the cost became visible, it looked the other way, and when the cost became ugly, it cut him loose. But the hardest part of Shia's story isn't what the industry did to him. It's that he learned its tricks so well that he started using them on everyone around him. The exaggerated trauma, the manufactured redemption, the performative accountability. He became the thing he hated, and he stared into the abyss for way too long. And we all watched it. Every meltdown, every arrest, every tearful confession. The same way we watched one of his characters, as solely entertainment that played on our ability to relate to him. That is the price he paid. Shia LaBeouf sold his soul to an industry that taught him how to perform everything except being a real person. And now, even when he's trying to be honest, no one, maybe not even him, can tell if it's real or just another role.